Hi. Okay, so we're back again. We're going to do another reading. We are making progress on catching up. I feel like I'm another week behind, but we'll get there. So let's go ahead and just get right up into it. Okay, so 8th of May. I began to fear as I wrote in this book that I was getting too diffuse. But now I am glad that I went into detail from the first, for there is something so strange about this place and all in it that I cannot but feel uneasy. I wish I were safe out of it, or that I had never come. It may be that this strange night existence is telling on me, but would that be that were all? If there were anyone to talk to, I would bear it, but there is no one. I have only the Count to speak with, and I fear I am myself the only living soul within the place. Let me be prosaic so far as fact can be. It will help me to bear up. And imagination must not run riot with me. If it does, I am lost. Let me say at once how I stand or seem to. I only slept a few hours when I went to bed, and feeling that I could not sleep any more, got up. I had hung my shaving glass by the window and was just beginning to shave. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my shoulder and heard the Count's voice saying to me, "Good morning." I started, for it amazed me that I had not even seen him since the reflection of the glass covered the whole room behind me. It's starting, I had cut myself slightly, but did not notice it at the moment. Having answered the Count's salutation, I turned to the glass again to see how I had been mistaken. This time there could be no error, for the man was close to me, and I could see him over my shoulder, but there was no reflection of him in the mirror. The whole room behind me was displayed, but there was no sign of a man in it, except myself. That was startling, and coming on the top of so many strange things, was beginning to increase the vague feeling of uneasiness which I had always have when the Count is near. But at the instant I saw that the cut had bled a little, the blood was trickling over my chin. I laid down the razor, turning as I did so half round to look for some sticking paper. When the Count saw my face, his eyes blazed with a sort of demonic fury, and he suddenly made a grab at my throat. I drew away, and his hand touched the string of beads which had held the crucifix. It made an instant change in him, for the fury passed so quickly that I could hardly believe that it was ever there. "Take care," he said. "Take care how you cut yourself. It is most dangerous that you think in this country." Then, seizing the shaving glass, he went on. And this is the wretched thing that have done the mischief. It is foul bauble of man's vanity. Away with it." And opening the heavy window with one wrench of his terrifying hand, he flung out the glass, which was shattered into 1,000 pieces on the stones of the courtyard far below. Then he withdrew without a word. It is very annoying, for I do not see how I am to shave unless in my watch case or the bottom of the shaving pot, which is unfortunately of metal. When I went into the dining room, breakfast was prepared, but I could not find the Count anywhere, so I breakfasted alone. It is strange that as yet I have not seen the Count eat or drink. He must be a very peculiar man. After breakfast, I did a little exploring in the castle. I went on the stairs and found a room looking towards the south. The view was magnificent, and from there there was every opportunity of seeing the castle. The castle is on the very edge of a terrible precipice. A stone falling from the window would fall 1,000 feet without touching anything. As far as the eye can reach is a sea of green treetops, with occasionally a deep rift where there is a chasm. Here and there are silver threads where the rivers wind in deep gorges through the forest. But I am not in the heart to describe beauty, for when I have seen the view I explored further. Doors everywhere, and all locked and bolted. In no place, save for the windows, is the castle wall is there an available exit. The castle is a veritable prison, and I am a prisoner. Chapter 2. Jonathan Harker's journal continued. When I found that I was a prisoner, a sort of wild feeling came over me. I rushed up and down the stairs, trying every door and peering out of every window I could find. But after a little, the conviction of my helplessness overpowered all other feelings. When I look back after a few hours, I think I must have been mad for the time, for I behaved such as a rat does in a trap. When, however, the conviction had come to me that I was helpless, I sat down quietly, as quietly as I have ever done anything in my life, and began to think over what was best to be done. I am thinking still, and as yet have come to the definite conclusion. Of one thing only am I certain, that is no use making my ideas known to the Count. He knows well that I am imprisoned, and as he has done it himself, and has doubtless his own motives for it, he would only deceive me if I trusted him fully with the fact. So far as I can see, my only plan will be to keep my knowledge and my fears to myself and my eyes. and my eyes open. I am, I know, either being deceived like a baby by my own fears, or else I am in desperate strait, and if the latter be so, I need and shall need all my brains to get through. I had hardly come to this conclusion when I heard the great door below shut and knew that the Count had returned. He did not come at once into the library, so I went cautiously to my own room and found him making the bed. This was odd, but only confirmed what I had all along thought, that there was no servant in the house. When later I saw him through the chinks of the hinges of the door lying the table in the dining room, I was assured of it. For if he does himself all the menial offices, surely it is proof that there is no one else to do them. This gave me a fright, for if there is no one else in the castle, it must have been the Count himself, who was the driver of the coach that brought me here. This is a terrible thought, for if so, what does it mean that he could control the wolves as he did, by only holding up his hand in silence? How was it that all the people at Bistritz on the coach had some terrible fear of me? What meant the giving of the crucifix, of the garlic, of the wild rose, of the mountain ash? Bless that good woman who hung the crucifix round my neck, for it is a comfort and a strength to me whenever I touch it. It is odd that a thing which I have been taught to regard with disfavor and industrious should, in a time of loneliness and trouble, be of help. It is that there is something in the essence of the thing itself, or is it that a medium, a tangible help in conveying memories of sympathy and comfort? Sometimes, if it may, I must examine this matter and try to make up my mind about it. In the meantime, I must find out all I can about Count Dracula, as it may help me understand. Tonight, he may talk to himself if I turn the conversation that way. He may talk of himself if I turn the conversation that way. I must be very careful, however, not to awake his suspicion. Okay, now technically we're heading into May 9th. We're still going to roll through because it says midnight. And I don't know if you guys are like me, but it doesn't count as the next day until I go to sleep. And Jonathan has not gone to bed yet, so we're reading it as part of today. Okay? All right. Midnight. I have had a long talk with the Count. I asked him a few questions on Transylvanian history, and he warmed up to the subject wonderfully. In his speaking of things and people, and especially of battles, he spoke as if he had been present at them all. Then he afterwards explained to say that to a bowyer, the pride of his house and name is his own pride, and their glory is his glory, and that their fate is his fate. Whenever he spoke of his house, he always said we, and he spoke almost in the plural, like a king speaking. I wish I could put down all he said exactly as he said it, for to me it was most fascinating. It seemed to have in it a whole history of the country. He grew excited as he spoke, and walked about the room pulling his great white mustache and grasping anything on which he laid his hands as though he could crush it by main strength. One thing he said, which I shall put down as nearly as I can, for it tells in it the story of his race. We Selekis have a right to be proud, for in our veins flows the blood of many brave races who fought as the lions fought, for lordship. Here, in the whirlpools of European race, the Ugric tribe bore down in the Iceland, and the fighting spirits which Thor and Woden would give, with their berserkers displayed to such fell intent on the seaboard of Europe, aye, and of Asia and Africa too, till the peoples thought that the werewolves themselves had come. Here too, when they came, they fought the Huns, who warlike fury had swept the earth like a living flame, while the dying people held that in their veins ran the blood of those witches who expelled from Scythia. Scythia had mated with the devils in the desert. Fools! Fools! What devils or what witch was ever so great as Attila, whose blood is in these veins? He held up his arms. Is it a wonder that we were a conquering race, that we were proud when the Magyars, the Lombards and the Avars, the Bulgars and the Turks poured his thousands on our frontiers? We drove them back. Was it strange when the Arpad and his legions swept through the Hungarian fatherlands he found us here when we reached the frontier, that the Honfoglalis, the Honfoglalis was completely there, and when the Hungarian flood swept eastward, the Selekis were claimed as kindred by the victorious Magyars, and to us for centuries was thrusted the guardians of the frontier of Turkeyland. Aye, and more than that, endless duty of the frontier guard. For, as the Turks say, water sleeps and enemy is sleepless. Who more gladly than we thought the four nations received the bloody sword, or as its warlike call flocked quicker to the standard of the king? When was redeemed the great shame of my nation, the shame of the Kosovo, when the flag of the Welsh and the Magyars went down beneath their crescent? Who was it but one of my own race, who as voivode crossed the Danube, and beat the Turks on his own ground? This was a Dracula indeed. Woe, was it that his own unworthy brother, when he had fallen, sold his people to the Turks, and brought the shame of slavery on them? Was it not this Dracula, indeed, who inspired the others of his race, who in a later age again and again brought his forces over the great river into Turkey land, who, when he was beaten back, came again and again and again, though he had to come alone from the bloody fields where his troops were being slaughtered, since he knew that he alone would ultimately triumph? They say that he thought only of himself. Bah! What good are peasants without a leader? Where ends the war without a brain and a heart to conduct it? Again, when, after the Battle of Mohacs, we threw off the Hungarian yoke, we of the Dracula blood were amongst their leaders, for our spirits would not broke, that we were not free. Ah, young sir, the Selekies and the Draculas are their heart's blood, their brains and their souls can boast the record that mushrooms grow like the Habsburg and the Romanovs can never reach. The warlike days are over. Blood is too precious a thing in these days of dishonorable peace, and the glories of the great races are other tale that is told. It was by this time close on morning, and we went to bed. Memo. This diary seems horribly like the beginnings of the Arabian Nights, for everything has to break off at cock crowing or like the ghost of Hamlet's father. Oh my. Doing the Count's voice is really fun, but I'm already struggling reading the words in my normal voice. Doing an accent and trying to read them, wild. Okay, but we are making progress. It looks like we'll be picking up in a few more days. So yeah, thank you for joining me on this reading again. I hope you enjoyed. Love you. Bye.